What are the strangest Dokkan design choices? How's it, everybody? Celtic Link here. We're back for another Dokkan battle video. In today's video, we are talking about some of the strangest unit design choices over the course of Dokkan's 10-year lifespan. They have made some rather odd choices as to how they design certain units for certain situations. Some of these designs a lot more head-scratching than others. So today we're going to talk about what I believe are the top 5 strangest designs. Designs that just make absolutely no sense given the context in which they released in. And then once we're done with our top 5, we will open up the floor to check out all of the wonderful replies you guys gave us to the post we did on Twitter. I want to see what you guys think are your top choices. So let's go ahead and let's hit in with number 5 on the list. This one was a weird one. The Fizz Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks, specifically talking about his release pre-EZA. He was one of the first 120 leads, leading Super Fizz for 120%, and he had this really strange design. Like, not only did he have multiple super attacks that you had to play around, right? He was very much a high risk reward character, but in a meta where, right, that defense could really cause some problems for him when he released, right? For 7 turns he lost 30% of his defense, right? For no reason at all. Like, there's no trade-off to it other than the extra attack, but he's already got 120% attack. And really the only fight where this matters is right, so for like SB, this made him almost a detriment to run in Super Battle Road and Extreme Super Battle Road, because that extra defense could get him killed, right? On top of the fact that he has no ability to raise his defense, on any of his 3 supers, which meant for 7 turns he was almost a sitting duck. He could become slightly useful in Legendary Goku event, but that released, a little while after he did. He could have been useful there, but by the time that came around, that was almost non-existent. And by the time he came around, you were able to clear most Dokkan events relatively easily without the need to worry about. So it was really like Super Battle Road was the main challenge, and this just makes absolutely no sense given that release. They did fix it, of course, on his EZA, which is good, right? So, and they still didn't fix his ability to raise defense on a super, but they did fix that major flaw on his EZA. So that was just a strange design choice, given that the hardest content that he needed to be used for on release would have been SBR. So that brings us to number 4. Number 4 is a strange design choice, and I do think there are worse choices than him, but that's why I put him as number 4. The AGL Trunks. There is a character that is good. Given his release time, he was an excellent unit in the argument for one of the top TURs in the game, right? Having an ability similar to the AGL Super Saiyan Blue Vegeta, where he basically gets more attack the more attacks he does. And the more he does, the more defense he's getting, right? And he was a monster on release in base form. And then he had the ability to transform, right? The transform could only be activated after performing 6 or more attacks. So usually for him, with a little bit of a dupe investment, this was around turn 5 or 6, even with the dupe investment. And then once transformed, he gained critical hits, guaranteed, once per turn, but with a base of 70% as long as he had 12 or more ki. Then, when the target was in defense down or attack down, he gained extra attack. When the target was stunned or sealed, he gained extra attack. When all allies were Android Cell Saga, he gained the ability to stun. This right here, this transformation and condition and abilities made absolutely no sense given his release. This guy released post 6th anniversary leading into the 7th, which means the hardest contents were Super Battle Road, Extreme Super Battle Road, more so on the extreme side, and Legendary Goku and Vegeta events, right? Specifically the GT Goku one. And what's strange about this, right, is his base form is actually really good for the Goku and Vegeta events, but his transform states is all but useless in those events because most of his passive is locked behind things you couldn't do in that fight. Attack down, defense down, stunning, and sealing. Coupled with the fact that the transformation condition being 6 or more attacks, and these things could only be done in Extreme Super Battle Road and Super Battle Road, you were never going to see this transformation in the events in which you could do these things. It just seemed like a really strange design choice given that you almost never wanted to transform him, because there was no reason to. There was no added benefit to doing it because he got worse defensively and got less attacks. So he was honestly better off in base form. It was just a strange decision overall. And that is our number 4 pick for the strangest design choice. Our number 3 pick is the AGL Majin Vegeta, specifically his Easy A. He got an Easy A during the post 6-year meta and also got an update to his animations, although that happened the year prior during the 5th year during the worldwide. But what they did some really interesting things with his Easy A. They gave him a condition where for an extra attack 20%, attack and defense 20%, he needed to have a Kid Trunks on the team. Then he needed to be... Then for his additional damage reduction, he needed to have a Bulma on the team as well as gaining critical hit with Fighting Goku. But that one wasn't too hard to activate given that, Legendary Goku event was a thing. But the Kid Trunks and the Bulma were almost impossible to be utilized, right? The Kid Trunks, you kind of had an advantage using like the recently Easy Aid Fizz and Fizz Trunks, but he also needed to have that AGL Goten around, and there wasn't really unless you ran Buu Saga or the Kid Goten and Trunks Gifted Warriors. There weren't too many teams you could run both of them reliably together. We didn't have a quite good enough Vegeta's family lead just then, and even then, right, the Bulma, it was physically impossible to run a team with Vegeta, Trunks, and Bulma. There was no way you could actually get his entire passive active until the release of the LR Blue Boys, where specifically the ones that transform into Vegito, who had that super class lead. That was about the only way to activate his full passive. But by then, he was completely useless, right? There was nowhere where you could reliably use this unit for anything. So that is why he makes the list of strangest design choices. Number 2 coming in is number 17, Super 17. This guy was the first introduction to the GT bosses category, and a weird choice being that he was a 150% lead. This has only happened one other time before with the Inhuman Deeds lead with the Vegeta and Nappa, but it was a strange choice given that given that given that the category barely got anyone to run on it. There were 1 or 2 awakenings that were added to him that could be utilized on this team, but that's not the peculiar thing about his design. The peculiar thing about his design was in order for him to function at his best, he needed androids and target Goku allies on the team. Now, the thing is, the target Goku specifically, there were very few androids that could work well enough on his team at release, let alone on a 150, that could have allowed you to safely utilize him and activate his passive. It could be done, but, you know, it overall lowered the viability of the team as a whole. He did get a little bit better with this with the release of STR Super 17 following the 8th anniversary, but again, at that point, you know, there wasn't much you could do with this guy. So it was really hard for him to kind of keep up his full passive. Add on to the fact that, right, in order to activate his active skill, he needed to be hit 7 or more times, which made it really difficult running a team like this in, say, like the Legendary Goku event. This is what made... especially because he couldn't have most of his passive up, right? And this is what made him part of this design choice is what made GT bosses one of the hardest categories to complete for the legendary events when they would come out. It truly was a strange choice to give him these conditions for categories he didn't lead. It was just an odd choice. So that brings us to the number 1 choice. The number 1 choice is the TUR Super Saiyan 3 Broly. Y'all knew he had to be here. Everybody knows what this guy is about. Both pre-EZA and post-EZA. It was worse pre-EZA, if you can imagine. But this guy's strange design choice was that he was a nuker, but like the worst kind of nuker, right? He got attack 12% for every key sphere obtained, and then lost defense 10% for every key sphere obtained. Now, on EZA, the defense was lowered to 6%, but that's still not helping much, right? He has no super attack effect on either his other than, you know, lowering enemies' defense on both pre and post EZA. So what this means is with pre-EZA, if you were to collect at least 10 key spheres, he would have 100% defense loss. Right? That means he could essentially get down to he could get close to 0 defense, which is just unreal that that's even something that could happen, right? Now, post EZA, right, with 6 key spheres obtained, right, or with 6% being lost, right, at most he's gonna get down to like I think what is that? 24 is the max key you can get, right? So 24. All right, so yeah, he would still, if you had managed to get a full field lost, you could still potentially lose your whole defense. Like, it makes no sense, because it means you either kill the enemy or they kill you. Is basically what it meant. He arguably the worst designed unit ever. Hands down. I can't think of another unit with a worse design, literally dropping your defense to 0. So that is my list for top 5. For the remainder of this video, I did want to take some time to go over a post we made over here on Twitter. I did bring it up to you guys, putting out here, what were your choices for the most strangest design choices? Now, like I had mentioned with my top 5, this doesn't necessarily mean bad on release, right? This just means their design left some questions, we'll say that. So scrolling through here, I put one that I didn't want to give him away my top 5, but the Goku and Frieza, right? The Frieza portion of this is the portion you start at, and it was such a strange design choice to lock his best defensive mechanics behind an HP mechanic that you're never gonna see, right? Because you start fights at full HP, you're not gonna have that condition right away, right? You start fights unless it's battle hardened formidable foes, but even then, right? That's just, I mean, by the time you're able to activate his HP condition, you're switching into Goku anyway. So it just seemed like an odd choice. Moving on from Fennec here, the initial release of Tech Janemba, you know, there was almost no point in transforming him. He actually got worse. He had most of his damage reduction, and his defensive mechanics were all locked behind his base form. There was no sense in transforming him because he became dodge or die. He was a worse version of the Int TUR one, who was still pretty good at the point of his release. So yeah, definitely agree with that. The next one, STR Super 17 having his Ki Blast absorption HP restricted, and LR Tech Zamos being locked behind getting hit for his best defensive mechanics while losing slot 1 after his intro runs out. So yeah, I definitely agree. These are definite design choices. I never understood why they made Super 17 have his HP restriction. I had so many instances in Red Zone Broly where I thought I would be able to absorb the super and realize we were just above the threshold. It's so crazy. Jaren here, the decision to do updated animations for old units exactly twice and never again. That was a weird choice. Not necessarily design choices for units, but definitely odd that they never did it again. This would have been a great thing for Super Easy A's, by the way. DKD here, Fizz Nova, the GT boss's Shadow Dragon supporting super class. That was, I mean, I understand because of like the interaction between him and Nova, but given the state of where GT bosses and Shadow Dragon Saga, specifically the extreme class variants, have always been, is odd, especially with him being an extreme unit. Okay, Super Nemesis, dodge units getting their dodge after attacking, such as the LR Blue Fusions, that is the 5th year anniversaries in STR Goten and Trunks. Totally agree. This one bothered me so much, the STR Goten and Trunks, with their conditions. Never understood that, really. Moving on, Vegito Glazer here, Super Easy A Fizz Goku Black needing to get hit to build defense while only having raw defense. Yeah, that's kind of crazy. It was workable within the meta that he released in, but it still was, it could be a pain early on if you didn't get the right setups. And especially later on if you didn't get full fields of orbs. And Ginyu Force restricted to special pose to screw for Frieza. Well, to be fair, he didn't release Frieza. He didn't release with Frieza. He released with Topo, so that's mostly why. And he's the only character who gets worse at Link level 10. Yes, that is exactly true, right? Ginyu Force, I mentioned this when he releases, like, he's a character you may not want to Link level because the lower links you have, the less Ki you're getting. Because if you get too much Ki, it's basically impossible to stack attack, which is what you would want to do with them. So yeah, totally, that was a terrible choice for them. Or at least just not give him Ki links is what they should have done. It makes zero sense. He's better off on Topo's team where he doesn't link with anybody, like legitimately. Okay, Zetsu here. Right, some older design choices, right? I think special squad attack with chance of giving allies Ki too. Yeah, that is an odd choice. Yeah, this is one. Oh, I see. This is yeah, these are definitely older choices, but yeah, just that random chance of giving Ki to. I guess in the past that was probably something useful, although the chance is just silly. But now with units overflowing with Ki, it's almost a non-issue, right? But I will agree, units that we still see units now with a chance of getting attack, you know, a chance of getting an attack or chance of getting something. So I definitely agree that those are odd choices. You see this with like LR Broly's super attack effect. He has that chance of getting a greatly raise. It's strange. This one, right? At the end of the turn in which the final blow is delivered, attack 2500. Yeah, this is mostly an older Dokkan thing before they moved to percentage bases. So I mean, The final, I'm not sure if he's referring to specifically the attack 2500 or to the final blow delivered. But yeah, it's definitely, I never was a fan of this final blow mechanic. Gerald here. Yes, GT bosses, Android 17. We did talk about that. Such a strange design choice. Trim here, right? AGL Frieza, they released him with most of the Space Traveling Warriors, and Terrifying Conquerors either weren't good, and he never got help. Yeah, nope, totally, yeah. I don't know that necessarily so that's more of a choice of release, right? I guess the terrible design choice of him was restricting him to fighting Pure Saiyans and low-class warriors, right? It feels like he was meant to release next to Bardock, Tech Bardock. But even and that would have been when Space Traveling Warriors was in a much better place, because overall his actual kit is pretty decent. If he had a little more defense, he would be a lot better off, right? It's just him being restricted to what he was at the time that he released. So, I mean, I guess that is an odd choice, right? Fecto Stylus here. Again, we mentioned Majin Vegeta. Totally was a weird choice. And then, of course, mentions Corrupted Zamos not having a name change, all right? Not so much what we were talking about with unit design choices, right? We can't really affect the name. Potara's Might, Super Trunks having a high chance to guard. Oh, believe me, I know how frustrating this design choice is, yes. I always said that it should be guaranteed if you fulfill the Android Cell Song condition. Dre, Int Fusion Zamos releasing and being replaced immediately by Tech Zamos. Yeah, well, I wouldn't say immediately, but yeah, the same name, not a good look for the Zamos characters. Hopefully they fix that in the future, or just eventually allow same name characters to link. Aqua Strider, when STR Cooler was in his prime, Dokkan seemed to be afraid to drop a unit of his caliber. They made STR Bojack nearly exactly the same as STR Cooler, albeit slightly worse. I do agree. I don't think we've seen another release of a villain unit on the level of what LR STR Cooler and TUR STR Cooler were on release. Like, they were just beyond broken, right? They had to restrict this guy is based to Space Traveling Warriors, and then of course, right, his I mean, I guess it's kind of forgiven that once he transforms, he becomes a monster. But yeah, it was a weird design choice, limiting him to a category that he didn't really work on, right? He released during the Slug celebration, where he kind of took up a spot that Slug really needed for demonic power. So that was, you know, that was definitely an odd choice. Bag on here, this guy losing 50% damage reduction on the 18 key instead of the previous 70%. I agree. Yeah, this was such a weird choice. I mean, I get it. It was basically supposed to be like a faux active skill, but I mean, they should have just left it. It was so weird. Making him lose that. I agree. This is LR Super Saiyan 3 Goku, if you can't see in the background there. Moving on, LR 17. Again, yeah, that high chance of key 1 up to 7. That was a weird choice. Majin Buu here. Surprised no one mentions AGL Trunks. I did. He was our top 3. He was our number 4 unit there. Int Yamcha, STR Roshi's entire design needing 2 Turtle School majority Peppy Gals for the extra stats. This is true, and it's not really majority. It's 2 and 2 basically, and I think the other Roshi fulfills this condition. But yeah, right. It was a weird choice. It made him very, very wonky to run, and it basically meant you can only run Gokus to make him function. So yeah, definitely a weird choice. Blue Duo wanting to transform turn 7, but only having 4 turns of guard. Oh, yep, no, that's definitely a weird choice. It gives you basically an open turn where you could get killed if you can't transform. Absolutely. Platinum here with the chance to oh, that's right, I forgot. This guy had a chance to transform. It was never guaranteed when he transformed into Evolution Blue. That was definitely a weird design choice. So that's it for the replies. Let's check out the quotes. So, oh, we got a few good ones here. All right, so Serena Maeve. Oh, the STR-18, absolute strangest ally enemy restrictions, having needing 4 or more Peppy Gals, or facing a Fizz type enemy. Like, yeah, that's a weird choice considering at her release, I think the only Peppy Gal, or the only Fizz type boss was Fizz Zamas, wasn't it? Which you weren't really going to try to take her into that fight anyway. So it was, yeah, it was definitely a weird choice. Okay, moving on. COJ here, of course, 17. I feel like a lot of us are on the same page with his design. It was such a weird design. Broly Trio, now that's a hot take if I've ever seen one. 100% dodge on 7 orbs, certain orbs, attack or defense to support big bad bosses. I would say that the strange design choice here is giving them big bad bosses when no other Broly trio has it. But I mean, it does help them with super bosses, right? Because a lot of the characters need super bosses. So it actually did work out eventually in their favor. But I don't understand the problem with this one. People, I mean, maybe it's just me, but too many people complain about the 7 orbs thing, but it's really not that bad. This guy, oh man, don't get me started on this guy. All right, so the Dark Evolution Vegeta, right? He's such a weird design because not only did he have to be full Dragon Ball Heroes, but he also needed to, he got buffs based on 2 or more enemies or 1 enemies, but there were no fights where you could do 2 or more enemies aside from the gammas, right? It was just a really, really strange design. You basically could never get his dodge or his extra critical hit together or his additional super attacks. It would just, yeah, I agree. This was a strange choice. Again, with Serena here with the L, what is this? The LR, this is the LR Universe 2 guys. Yeah, they were definitely a strange design choice, needing to be on Power of Wishes, or tournament participants, and needed to have another Power of Wishes ally on the team. So they really wanted you to run them with the U2 girls, and could only face tournament participant, or no, you needed another tournament participant. Yeah, so they were a really strange design choice combined with their actual release unit, because they just, neither one of these were really majorly runnable in any of the fights, even Sen, right, just due to the AoEs. The reps and Universe Survival Saga wouldn't really come into themselves until after the 9th anniversary, so this is definitely an odd choice. Fade to Black here. He gave us a couple. He got 17. I see that here. Turles. Yeah. So Turles was a weird design choice. Most of his kit was great, but it was so weird locking his support and his entrance animation behind facing a Goku family enemy when there were literally no Goku family enemies to fight. Like, that was such a strange choice. Raditz getting getting Key 2 for the delivery of the final blow. I mean, Raditz is just bad design in general, so I don't know necessarily strange, but I agree that the Key 2 on the final blow, that was such a strange choice. And then I guess the strange choice he mentions here for Trunks is specifically not keeping his 3-turn defense raise when his counterpart Zamas did. I agree, that is a strange choice. Almost every post worldwide unit being a slot 2 in a meta where the hardest fight is AoEs. Well, I don't necessarily agree with these guys, because these guys actually did really good against Fusion Zamas. But I agree with the others. But that said, I mean, this is only a strange design choice for these guys if you focus solely on one fight. I'll say that, right? If we stepped away for Fusion Zamas for a second, right, these two were actually really good in Omega. Because she had type advantage in the AoE phase, which made it a non-issue. Riku's design is definitely a weird choice. Not only was he a base Goku, which means he couldn't link with the other major Gokus released during that year, but him being designed for events that just didn't exist, right? He was designed clearly for an event with multiple enemies, which, I mean, ended up being like that Cyberman event, or which can work, but he it just, The only other events would be like Super Battle Road or Extreme Super Battle Road, but even then, that's a strange choice, right? Because per enemy, which but also needing the final blow, which means like after you kill an enemy, you're going to lose this buff, but then gain this buff. So it is a weird choice. Moving on, Annie mentions the Limit Breaker Super Saiyan 4s and having this restriction to needing all full power or all heroes. Yeah, that does suck. I hope they do fix this on their EZA this year, and just like they seem to be moving away from, you know, restricting them to heroes. So hopefully they don't just restrict them to full power or heroes. Maybe they'll just make it super class or just remove the restriction entirely. But locking the damage reduction behind this made them really, really hard to use. Hibby here, not the weirdest, but the most recent, having a randomly changing int key spheres to another type. On a Fizz type unit. Yeah, that was weird. And changing Fizz type to STR. Yeah, okay, you know, that was weird. Yeah. And then for every, oh yeah, that's right. And then they get, so for every STR or Fizz launches an additional attack. And then STR or Fizz gets 40% attack and critical hit. But then if you get AGL tech, you guard or int, but you're changing int spheres. So you can't get int spheres. So yeah, that is definitely an odd choice here. Vector mentions Android 16. Yeah, needing a Gohan now. On his release, this was strange because we didn't really have a Gohan that he could be used with, except for that brief moment where AGL Gohan got his buff. But now he's actually kind of useful on Cell's team with STR Gohan's EZA. He's actually still kind of relevant. So all great additions. Appreciate all the feedback we got on the Twitter posts here from all of you, and hopefully you guys enjoyed our top 5. Always love reaching out to the community and seeing what you guys can come up with, and you know, maybe we'll do more of these. So guys, that's it for the video. If you like the video, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and in the comments down below, let us know if you missed out on the Twitter post. Let us know who you think the strangest Dokkan designs are. I thought that this would be a good chance for the community to talk about a little kind of something while we are waiting for the drop of Golden Week here in a coming week. Otherwise, guys, as always, thanks for watching, and aloha.